Hey everyone. Okay, so today we're going to talk about how our core muscles work. So, like our abs, people talk about, and much more than that, but that area of the body. And why it's important to strengthen these muscles and some benefits of that and how it can prevent injury, etc. So, when people talk about the core, usually what they're referring to or what they think about oftentimes is the abdominals. Okay, so the abs. So, what is the abdominal? So the abdomen in general, as we know, is where the stomach lies, right? So on our friend Bonesy here, we have this, basically just this area, right? And here we have our stomach, our viscera, our colon, our digestive organs, etc., right? So this is the abdominal viscera, right? Versus the thoracic viscera up here, where the heart, lungs, etc. is. Separated by almost like the dome-shaped muscle I talked about in a different video of the diaphragm, right? So as you breathe, it basically compresses and you have this abdominal area. So surrounding that abdominal area, almost like a big jacket, you have these 3 layers of muscles. So these are considered what people call the abdominals, okay? So, and those 3 layers don't even include the abs, the abdominals, technically what people refer to as that when you think about your 6-pack and stuff, or 8-pack or 10-pack or whatever. That's a muscle that sits down the middle. And that's actually called your rectus abdominis. Rectus just means straight in Latin. So it's your straight abdominal muscles, right? Versus the other ones are various shapes, okay? And they're named accordingly. So what we have is basically muscles that originate on our ribs, as well as the back and close to our spine, okay? As well as the edge of our hips here. You can feel on yourself. If you go from your ribs down, you'll feel like a hip bone, right? So you eventually hit this, right? Ribs down here. They start in here. They attach way down into your pelvic bone. So if you go your belly button, soft tissue, soft tissue, soft tissue. Oh, there's a bone there, right? And then your genitals. If you feel a bone, that's this bone right here, pubic symphysis, okay? So these core muscles, they attach in all those areas, as well as, like I said, the front of the ribs, right? So if you feel your rib cage, the edge of the ribs, they're right into there, right? Obviously you have, like I said, the rectus abdominis, the 6-pack muscles that go down the middle, right? And they attach up into this little pointy thing right here called the xiphoid process, right? So they're wide, and each of the 3 layers, what's unique about them is they actually go in different directions. So similar, I talked about in the digestion video about how our stomach, when it's churning, it has 3 layers of soft tissue, layers of muscle around it that contract, and so, but they're different directions. And so if it contracts like this, then this one contracts like this, it creates a churning. So we have a similar thing kind of happening here, not necessarily, it's more of a bracing effect is what this is actually doing. But you have 3 layers, and so the deepest of the layers is your, what's called your transverse abdominis, okay? And these ones basically just go, if you take your hands, put them like this on your own side of your ribs or just below the ribs, so they're shaped like this, that's the direction the fibers go. So it's like a big hug right around our bodies. And they originate right in, we have this big area of tissue in your low back. You just feel in your low back. You know, there's like those basically big muscles that go along both sides. You can feel those bumps. So that's your a combination of muscles, but there's some of your more erect or back muscles. And merging into all this tissue down here where it feels really tight is what's called the thoracolumbar fascia. So thoraco being thoracic, okay, lumbar being lumbar, the low back, and fascia is just the connective tissue. So it's this really thick membranous unit. And so all 3 of these layers come from back here, wrap around the body, and they attach in the front. So the transverse abdominis, the deepest ones, start in a variety of places, but basically along the spine, into that fascia, that tissue, into the back of the ribs here, the side of this hip bone, and then they wrap around like this, and then they attach in the front. I'll talk about where in a second. The second layer, if you come out now, that was the deepest one. The second layer is called and these next 2 are called the obliques. And they're called obliques because they run at an oblique angle, like that and like this, okay? So the internal ones, which is like now our second layer, right, the middle ones, they're sitting like this. So if you take your hands and just put them like this, angled, in that same spot between the side of your ribs and your hips and the front here and the back. They're running like that. And so they're sitting like this. And so when you do a sit-up, and say you do a, like curls where you like do a sit-up and you turn to the right or the left, you see that happening? If you turn, say, to the right, and you do a sit-up like this, and you turn to the right, these are contracting because they're basically pulling you and twisting you to the same side. So they're sitting like this. And so you can imagine a string going from here down to here. Here, I'll do that. From here on the front down to here. So what happens is a muscle can just shorten, it just tightens. So if you do a sit-up, imagine Bones here doing a sit-up forward and twisting this way. You can imagine if he did that and twisted this way, these would come closer together. This rib here would be going down this way because you'd be twisting, and it would shorten the distance between. So it's basically just pulling, and from a movement perspective, allowing that rotation to the right. So that's our internals. Same thing, originating kind of in this other area on the hips, because they're coming up like this. They're a little more attachment on this lateral side, but they attach all the way throughout here on the lowest ribs. And then again, come in, attaching up like that. Okay. Third layer, the deepest one, or the most superficial it's called, or the one closest to the skin, is called the external obliques, just because it's external. Same thing, oblique angle. Instead of like this, it's now like this. So if you're having yourself, it's like that. So these are the ones you see on people. If they have really strong core, and you might see ribs, but you see like these muscles when they twist and turn that are like these little rib-shaped straight things, for lack of a better word. It's basically sitting like that. So these are the external obliques. Okay, so they're sitting on bones like this. Like that, like this, like this. Even on the back, they're kind of like they're angled down. So again, same attachments in your back, right? And then they go like this. And so if I do that same sit to the right, it's actually not, it's not this side contracting, it's the other one. So this one, so they kind of switch the obliques. The one side, if you like do a sit up and then turn to the right, or even if you're sitting somewhere and you get up and you like twist, say you twist to get something, when you twist, you're using these muscles. You're actually twisting. If you twist to the right, using the obliques on this side, and then this last one, you're using the one on the outside, and you twist. So this one, this isn't super important, but it basically is sitting like this, or sorry, like this, and it helps you turn. This is the one on this side, helps you turn this way. So it's opposite. Not super important, but for you anatomy dudes and gals, I find that interesting. So gals. Yes, so those are the three obliques. Now I said where they attach in the middle here. So where they attach in, so you have your abs sitting right down the middle. It's a big string, right? What does it do? Obviously, you see people doing crunches, core exercises to strengthen your abs, get the six-pack, right? Everybody has a six-pack, right? Or an eight-pack, but it's all just like under different amounts of fat, so you don't see it, right? But we all have that. That's just how the muscle's functioning. It's a unique muscle. I'll chat about that sometime. All three of these core muscles come together like this on both sides. And what happens, if you, say you cut Bonesy in half like this, and you turn him upside down and you looked in like this, so his head's back here, you're looking into his abdomen. What you'd see is the two ab muscles are shaped like this. So when you see a six-pack, you see like six little things, right? In the middle, you notice how it's not a three-pack, so it's not like pieces like this, it's like six, almost like a X's nose board on someone's abdomen, right? So why that is because you have this thing right down the middle called the linea alba, which is just a line of connective tissue, a tight little line of connective tissue that runs pretty much like right down where your belly button is. So what's kind of cool is all three of these muscles wrap around. So here's your, if you're looking when he's upside down, there's like that, there's your abs, if you can imagine that. And then these three muscles come around the sides and they loop above and below this together, and then above and below. So it's like your abs are encompassed in these core muscles. So when you flex, you bear down, go to the washroom, sneeze, anything where you're doing that Valsalva kind of sensation and you're bearing down, childbirth, anything like that, you basically are contracting not only these three layers, but also your abs, your abdominal, your rectus abdominis muscle. Okay? So this whole thing works as a unit. Now, why do we have this? And why is it important to strengthen it? What's the point of this thing? So there's a couple different things. Firstly, stability for your low back. Okay, so we all know back injuries, herniations, we sit a lot, we get up, we have this like really like lordotic it's called, or like really curved low back. You can think lordotic like a lord and standing up, right? Good posture. So, but you normally have a curve like that in your low back. But sometimes if you sit a lot, or you're stressed, or you have really tight muscles in the front, instead of being healthy like this, it can really curve. And you can see like right in here, imagine these bones here got more curve, and they, instead of being like this, they were like that. It compresses, right? It goes bone on bone here. Bone on bone and bonesy, right? So these basically push against each other. And these little yellow things here, these nerves coming out, get compressed, which can produce pain. You also have your tailbone here, right? Your sacrum, and you have your two hip bones. And so if you are sitting a lot, or your pelvis is like tilted, imagine this whole thing here was tilted really far forward, it would increase this curve, which would hurt, right? And produce almost a compression of the low back. So that's your like SI joint compression and like low back compression, all these various names for things. Basically it means you're compressing. So what you want to do is support the front. So you can imagine if you had a lot of strength up here and you tighten all that, that would help. Just imagine a string at the front of the body here getting really short and tightening. What would it do to this? Well, since it attaches down here in the pelvis in the front, a string up here shortening would basically do, it would either pull the pelvis up or pull the ribs down, which it could do either. But if you basically could pull this up and tilt this back, which would decrease compression back here. So having a tight core is really important to help stabilize the spine, because it attaches into all this fascia here, helps stabilize it and keep the strong and decrease the chance of injury, and also helps decrease that anterior tilt of your pelvis that can happen just from posture, like I said, stress, tight muscles, etc. So, or like weak glutes on the back and weak muscles in the back to pull you back, right? That's why strengthening your glutes is really important too. So those are some of the reasons. Also, it supports your viscera, or organs inside. So people talk about having like organ prolapse, right? People have even genital prolapse, a lot of weakness in this lower abdominal area, or your pelvic floor. Pelvic floor exercises, pelvic floor physio has become a really big thing in the last 10 years, right? Which is great. So you want that strength. Also, sorry, notice a little herniation here in my skeleton, a little red herniation. That's cool. Yeah. So basically, it's important to strengthen this to hold things in, because the way your organs are is it attaches, like your abdominal muscles, or your organs, your small intestine, large intestine, they attach into like the soft tissue. It's called the mesentery, is one of them. It attaches into the front of the ribs here. And so if things get loose and lax, or you slouch a lot, you forwardly tilt and all your pelvis starts to like basically come out, and you have that like stomach pushing out here, and you're really arched. Part of the reason is weak abdominals, because you want that core to pull that in and hold everything in, because everything's just hanging here in the front. It's like big bags, basically, is how it works. There's different names for it. There's peritoneum, it's called. It's basically these sacs that when you're developing, they invaginate almost on themselves, and like they move in and out, and they create these different bags, basically, where your organs sit in. So you want this support to help pull everything in and up, to help support this. And oftentimes you're strengthening the core, you're also strengthening the pelvic floor, which is great as well, to hold everything in this way. And for sexual activity, reproductive activity, just in terms of pelvic health, even around going to the washroom, incontinence is huge, right? Erectile dysfunction, you want to be able to hold that semen even sometimes too, right? So it can impact your sexual activity, right? Obviously, just like random incontinence is huge, right? Number one and number two, which is a big thing, right? So that's super important. So those are some of the main reasons why it's important to strengthen. Best ways to strengthen, another video I'll do on that. But if you look up Stu McGill, the big three, Stu McGill, he's a professor at University of Waterloo, my alma mater. He's one of the best low back. He has a book called Low Back Disorders. He's worked with like George St. Pierre, like world class. He's world class in terms of strengthening the core. So he's not a big sit-up guy. He has 3 big exercises, which, you know, spoiler alert, are bird dog, which is, you know, the one you see in the gym or yoga where your arm is out, opposite leg. In Pilates, they use it physio all the time. So there's that one, side planks, and then a form of crunch, but you're not crunching way up because it increases low back compression if you do enough of them. So there's better exercises. But what he advocates for, at least at the start, is a form of crunch where you are lifting forward and engaging, but you're not putting your head way forward. You're really focusing on pulling your chin and just lightly doing, basically lifting your shoulder blades up. So doing this versus that. So just doing shoulder blades forward. So you're bringing this closer down to here is the Cole's notes. Anyway, he's a great resource for that. But side planks are great. You want to pull that belly button in when you're doing the exercise to really engage. But that's a topic for another video. But in strengthening that, there's tons of videos on strengthening the core. And I don't want to say you can't go wrong, because as he'll talk about, Stu McGill, it's STU, by the way, MCGILL, Stu McGill. I'll try to remember to link it below. But so if you do enough repetitions of something, you can increase compression, etc. And there can be exercises, obviously, that are better than other exercises. But if you strengthen your core, if you feel sharp pain or something, stop. But basically, if you start doing side planks, you start doing a front plank, you start doing any kind of rotational movements or motions, crunches if you want to try that, you're going to get stronger in the core. So I wouldn't worry too much about, oh my goodness, am I doing the right thing? It's important to have good form, etc. That's huge, of course. I don't want to diminish that, but just start working and you'll see some results there. It is important, though, I will say too, if you strengthen the front, to work on movement back here as well. Strengthen your glutes, right? You don't want to just strengthen the abs. Yeah, but it's very good for digestion as well, which I'll talk about more about sometime. So yes, I hope that's interesting and helps you out in your understanding of core muscles and how your body works kind of in this area. Leave some comments below and let me know if there's any topics you want to hear more about, and I'd be happy to make more videos on it. Awesome, everyone. Have a great week.